fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
The embarrassing scar that just won't go away. Hey everybody, Joe Simons, Like Diamonds, Salt Strong Unchurched. We are back with an embarrassing story about myself and my wife and our house. And this is just a great life lesson. It was a great lesson for us to reflect. And I think this happens more often than we care to admit. And I think that if we all were just a little bit more conscious about what we think about ourselves and the little small minutia things in our lives and looked instead on the positive, wow, our lives would be so much better. So here's the story. We bought our house about a year and a half ago. I did a podcast on that. And this home was, way out of our budget, to be honest with you. And but we knew this was the forever home. And the one thing that sold us was the backyard. The house is, 50 plus years old. A lot of the appliances are 30 plus years old. It needs a lot of love. It needs a lot of work. But as soon as you see this backyard, the entire back of the house, it's a white brick house, but the entire back is all glass, and it looks out up like this beautiful cascading down hill. I mean, we're talking like 300 feet between this back, basically the back of our house, this glass wall. Then you got this beautiful all St. Augustine grass that goes all the way down 280, 300 feet down to the lake, right? And you see this just magnificent view of the lake. We're up on the, on a hill on a platform. And I mean, this is like a perfect yard for like a 300-foot slip and slide. It would literally just keep going all the way down. So it's sloped all the way down. In the St. Augustine grass looks perfect. It's breathtaking. And it's really, as soon as we saw it, we knew like, all right, this is it. Like we can forget about a lot of the stuff in the house, but this view is it, right? We could forget about the 32-year-old oven and just look at this backyard. It really is breathtaking. I have coffee out there. My wife and I do every morning, and we just pinch ourselves. And even going back to my book, Fish for Happiness, we wrote down, what an ideal, life in our house and everything would look like. And we described this, just having this beautiful view of a water. We didn't care, honestly, if it was a lake or the ocean. It turned out to be a lake for us. And I mean, it really, I couldn't describe it anymore. Is perfect. And and everyone who comes over, it's just like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. So just to give you a background of our situation, right? The entire number one thing about this house is this backyard with this beautiful St. Augustine grass and this just magnificent view. Okay, so we're spending a lot of time out on the lake, right? Starting in the late spring, early summer, we're out there literally every single weekend. And I started realizing, because we're spending so much time out there, that, kids are getting really nasty and messy. We've got a small little beach down there. So a lot of sand and, weeds from the lake. And a lot of times we're just a hot mess, and all of our gear is got sand and dirt and all kinds of stuff all over it. And so I said, it'd really be nice to have a hose down there, to have some water. So right now prior to this, we had no water. And so I called up my irrigation buddy, and he's like, yeah, it's just, it's 300 feet down. We're going to have to basically run a line from your house all the way down, to the water, about 300 feet or so. And I said, all right, well, what are we going to do? And he says, well, good news, it's sloping down. So that makes it a little bit easier. We're not having to push water up a hill. So we're really just going to have to, use our equipment and cut a pretty good ditch all the way down and lay about, I think it was a 1 inch or 3/4 inch pipe all the way down. So water from the house runs all the way down, gives me some good pressure, still enough to be able to put a hose down, by the lake. So all that sounded great. So they go for it that day, and turns out we got just a ton of old roots, a couple of oak trees back there, and they were having trouble getting this, essentially this machine that just cuts a ditch, like a little trencher. They were having trouble getting it, down deep enough. So like they're really putting this thing down there, and I'm watching them like, oh no. And by the way, this goes literally right down the middle of our entire yard. So once again, the pride and joy of this whole property, our whole house, is this massive ditch. And in some areas was about 8-9 inches wide and pretty deep enough, obviously, to put this pipe all the way down. So we're talking about something you would not miss, let's just say. My buddy Zane would kid. He's like, man, I think I just saw it on Google Satellite, this massive line down your grass. I mean, it was pretty gaudy, especially the fact that it went literally right down the middle. It was just this scar that went all the way down the middle, 300 feet from the house down to the lake. And as you can imagine, when you have something that's 8 inches wide and that deep, where, I mean, they've literally there's no grass. The grass has to heal over, and that takes months. And we're now 2+ months into it, and it's still not even remotely close to being healed. It looks horrible, by the way. It is an eyesore. I mean, you could see it from the lake if you're in the boat. I see it every morning, and it literally drives me nuts. So here's kind of the embarrassing part. So my wife's best friend from Atlanta is coming into town not too long ago, and she had never been here at this house, and she's coming with her daughter. No, I'm sorry, with her son, and so, like any time when you got friends in town or someone you haven't seen in a while, and this is her best friend, BFF from a long, long time ago, since they were little kids. And, you want to impress your friend and obviously, show them your place. And there is some pride that goes along with that, even though we probably shouldn't, be so concerned. It's human nature, and it's how we are. And so, like, we're literally having conversations like that morning before she's about to fly, and like, oh man, it's a stupid scar down the middle of our grass. It looks horrible. It's taking it all away. And like, we're focusing on all this negative stuff. And then she shows up, and, we're showing around the house, and all of a sudden we get back to the back part of our house, and she sees this view, and she is like, she's stunned. And I'm sitting there watching her, and like, I mean, you see her eyes, and like she's silent, and she's looking at all of it, and it was breathtaking. She's like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing," and she's still taking it all in. My wife says, "Oh yeah, but we just hate this scar." So once again, her best friend's here. We haven't said a word. She's taking all this in, and my wife like kind of interrupts her thoughts and says, "Yeah, but look at this horrible scar. Like, we can't stand it." And she doesn't hear. She's literally so enthralled with this view, she doesn't hear my wife. My wife says it again. She goes, "Oh yeah, but I mean, did you see this?" And she's like, "What?" Her name's Chi, Vietnamese girl, and she goes, "What?" And after the second time my wife brought it up, this negative scar, right, the ugliness of our backyard, and she has to point it out to her. She's like, "You don't see this scar?" She's like, "Oh my gosh, like I literally was looking past that because I was just looking at this magnificent view of the lake." And it struck me the second it happened, I'm kind of smiling. And I think it was a life lesson for both of us that, my wife had to bring up the negative part twice to her friend who was so enthralled with the beauty and had completely overlooked the negative, ugly scar because she was focused on the positive and we were so focused on the negative. Wow. How many times have we sabotaged the beauty in our lives because we were so concerned about someone seeing the negative, right? How many times have we let pride take the front seat, all because of our ego is so big and we're so worried about how we're going to look or what someone's going to think of us because of some small thing that 99% of people are probably overlooking. And even if they don't, who cares? And that was such a life lesson. I was like, oh my gosh, we were literally so concerned. And it was the first thing that we want to bring up is the negative. And she didn't even see it. Her eyes had literally scanned past all that because she was looking at the beauty. That's what we're called to do, is look at all the amazing things God has put into our lives. Look at all the amazing beauty and splendor that God has put into our world. And yet we focus on these little small petty things. And it all goes back to pride. It all goes back to the the ego. Pride is literally the ruin of so many people, right? And heck, even this podcast, I've shared the story before. It was pride almost prevented me and really Luke from not doing Unchurched, because we were so concerned on the potential negative of what would people think about us. We might lose friends. We might lose some followers. We might lose some Facebook fans. We might have some people say a couple negative things about us because we were worried, right, about something that might be embarrassing or that might come up, or that we might be called a name, all because of Unchurched, even though we knew in our hearts it was the right thing to do, and it was going to bring tons of beauty and tons of splendor and tons of amazing conversations and open up some doors and ultimately do what God was calling us to do. And yet we almost didn't do it because of pride. And the other part of it, besides the pride, is just how many times in our lives that we focus on the negatives. Right. We've all heard of this glass half empty or half full. We all know which version we should be picking. Yet so many times, including yours truly, we focus on the negatives, these small little things that maybe we don't like about ourselves. Right. We see it now with young men and women, right? I mean, plastic surgery is at all-time highs, not even like, you can't even compare it to anything else, even amongst 16 and 17-year-olds. I mean, so concerned with these small little things that most people don't notice. It's so sad, and it pains me when I see and hear about some of these young and old people, who go through all this extensive plastic surgery, sometimes even having massive complications, making the whole thing worse, on something that no one else has even noticed except them. And they become so enthralled and just so obsessed with something so small in the negative sense that they forget about all of the amazing beauty that they have both on the inside and outside. So I hope this is a life lesson for all of us. Don't let pride get in the way. And if you do have an embarrassing scar, maybe it's not that embarrassing to begin with, right? It was something that my wife and I couldn't stop looking at, and we were forgetting about all the beauty that was there. I mean, look past that little scar that's down the middle of your grasp, or the middle of your arm, or the middle of your scalp, whatever it might be, and look at all of the beauty. It was such a good lesson for us. And as soon as it happened, I wrote it down. I was like, all right, I got to do an Unchurched about this. And I sat there and laughed early. I was like, you know what? We literally had to tell her twice. I mean, how crazy is that? She literally did not see it and was literally just taking it all in and so stunned that my wife had to mention it 2 times and then still point it out to her. And she just wasn't even seeing it. She looked way past that. Oh gosh, so embarrassing. So hope this was helpful. Hopefully you can look at something at your own life that maybe seems embarrassing to you. Just start flipping it, meaning flip it on its back and say, you know what, who cares? This is so minute. Most people would never notice this. Let's focus on something that's amazing and something beautiful and something awesome in your life, instead of focusing on the small little thing that honestly most people don't even see. And you probably have to bring it up once or twice for them to even notice it. We notice the small stuff and we get consumed by it, sadly, where in most cases people are looking way past that and looking at all the greatness. So get rid of that pride, focus on the positives, not the negatives. And hit me up if you have any, good stories you want to share. I love hearing them. Joe@saltstrong.com. That's JOE@saltstrong.com. Otherwise, I will talk to you on the next episode.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul.